But we start every show with a reminder that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. You guys know I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs roll around and wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and that's a big bummer. The sports just don't sports like I want them to. But thanks to FanDuel, I can keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and the ultimate Cleveland sports show. The Guardians are the best story in baseball. They continue to win. We'll talk about the game in a sec, but let's start with the bigger news from yesterday in relation to your Cleveland Guardians, and that is 5 different players were named to the American League All-Star team. The list includes Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan as starters, Emmanuel Clase making a return trip to the All-Star game, and then 2 newbies, David Fry and Josh Naylor, both getting their first official All-Star game nod. Guys, we'll get to the individuals in a second, but they got 5. My question to start is, should it have been 6?
No, who's 6?
I want Hunter Gaddis on the team.
Yeah, but setup guys almost never make the All-Star team.
Especially because you only pitch 1 inning.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 closers. However,
yeah,
if you look at his numbers, if you look at what he's done, you can make a case for him. Am I going to scream, snub? No. But I think he's pitched well enough to be an all-star.
I think the Guardians have 4 guys in their pen besides Clase who have pitched well enough.
You could make a case for Cade Smith.
Yeah, and Tim Herron. He's done a great job.
It's unreal.
Those guys have all done great. I mean, I'm trying to think of any setup guys made the all-star team.
Rarely. It happens
this
once in
year.
a while.
I mean, you might have one guy, but
Andrew Miller, he made it as a setup guy.
It's very rare. Ben Lively's pitched well, but not quite an all-star level.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of the other hitters deserve to make it. The only question mark was would David Fry get in, and he did. So that's great.
That was a cherry on top of the sundae right there. I didn't think he would get in.
I didn't think he would either because he's cooled off quite a bit.
5 is good for me. They should be lucky to get them 5. Clap it up.
Well, I mean, think about it. The David Fry thing in particular is just mind-blowing because if I would have said, you could have said to me before the season, Adam, name me 100 guys that have never made the All-Star team that you think could make their first All-Star team. He wouldn't have been on the list. You could ask me for 200 guys.
You might go 200 or 300 deep.
I mean, you could have asked me to name 15 guys on the Guardians. I wouldn't have named him. First of all, I didn't think he'd play enough that he would be able to anywhere make an All-Star team. But he did. He deserved it. Yes, he cooled off a little bit, but it's a whole first half award. And he played great. The OPS around 1,000. He's hit for power. He plays wherever they need him on the field. It's a remarkable story. You know, the Guardians traded a guy named J.C. Mejia to get him.
Yeah.
J.C. Mejia.
Wasn't he a catcher that they were high on?
No. He's a pitcher. He's a pitcher.
Who was the catcher they traded a couple of years ago?
Didn't they trade him to the Padres?
Oh, you're talking about the guy they traded to the Rays.
Yes. I can't think of his name.
Top prospect. I can't think of his name. I think he's out of baseball.
I thought he was part of that trade.
No. So they traded J.C. Mejia for him. J.C. Mejia had an 8 ERA for the Guardians in a brief time in the majors. He's had an 8 ERA for the Brewers in a brief time, and he's currently serving a 162-game suspension for a second fail of steroids.
Yeah.
And they got this guy who was like nothing. Nobody thought anything of him. He wasn't particularly good in the minors. He was in the minors for a long time. This is why baseball is great, because stories like this happen every so often, and it's a remarkable accomplishment for David Fry.
And it would not have been, I don't think he plays this much if Tito's here.
I think you're right.
I don't think no knock against Tito. It's a different philosophy. But Stephen Vogt, we'll talk about Martinez coming up he plays everybody. Everybody there's no more. G. Bush had to shut up. The whole narrative about, hey, we got guys in the minors that we don't play, we don't give them an opportunity. Oh, no. Everyone gets a shot to see what you got.
Maybe look what happens. Guys come from the woodwork.
Maybe it's a situation to where Stephen Vogt seen a lot of himself within David Fry.
Maybe.
A guy that was not really touted as a high prospect, journeyman, so to speak. A guy that can play multiple positions and kind of came on later in his career. To Bull's point, if you would have threw out a list of 100, 200 guys that you say was going to make their first All-Star game, I don't think he would have been on it. But furthermore, if you look at what his season numbers is to this point, I think if most MLB experts projected David Fry's season stats for the entire year, it probably wouldn't be those numbers right there.
It definitely wouldn't be those numbers.
What he's done this year.
Because he was going to be a platoon guy.
Yeah, what he's done this year is remarkable.
But we found out early in spring training, don't use the word platoon around Stephen Vogt. He doesn't subscribe to that theory at all. What he likes to do is mix and match guys, get them into the lineup every couple of days. Even the guys that are deeper down the lineup, he's getting these guys regular looks where under Tito and under most managers, this, if you're 13, 14 down and you're a utility infielder, you might play once a week, maybe a pinch run or a pinch hit, but you're not getting regular at-bats. And it's funny what happens when these guys get regular at-bats. They start to get a little confidence. They're not worried. The tough thing about being a platoon guy or a non-everyday player, you put more pressure on yourself with each at-bat because you know you're not getting 3 tomorrow.
Right.
So you start gripping, and then crazy things happen.
Well, that's his discipline at the plate. And that was, by the way, in the minor leagues, he did not have good plate discipline.
I didn't look at his numbers in the minor leagues.
Yeah, Zach Meisel gave me, I don't remember the exact numbers today, but basically he has transformed himself.
Wow.
It's so bizarre. Like, he used to swing at a lot of bad pitches in the minors. He doesn't swing at that many bad pitches.
I've had catchers tell me that it's, even though most catchers aren't great hitters, I've had catchers before tell me that it is easier if you use your catcher's mask as sort of a superpower at the plate. You track balls. That's what you do. You identify spin. You recognize where the pitch is not started, where it's going to end, because that's where your glove is. Barry Bonds used to say this. Barry Bonds said, the barrel of my bat is the extension of my ball glove. If I want to reach out and catch something that's thrown 100 miles an hour, I can do it every time. I'm following it to my glove. So he just envisioned that he had a glove on the barrel of his bat, and he was going to extend his hands and get the barrel of the bat on the ball. And catchers have told me before that it's easier for them to put the bat on the ball because of their time behind the plate. So maybe David Fry becoming a catcher like this, maybe it's had an impact.
Barry Bonds used to say he used to do batting practice, and if he had marks anywhere but the sweet part of the barrel, he knew his mechanics was off somewhere because he wanted the bat to be the extension of his arms.
Every time.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
And to the point of if Tito was here, and this is not to knock Tito, he's a great manager, did a great job. But if Tito were here, I don't think Miles Straw would have ever gone to the minors. Had Miles Straw never gone to the minors, you wouldn't have had Freeman in the outfield. You would have it would have changed a whole series of events that would have included David Fry not playing as much.
No, that's a good point, because we saw it last year play out. He just had Miles Straw standing out there hitting 200 all year with no power.
And by the way, Stephen Kwan is the first homegrown Guardians All-Star outfielder since Manny Ramirez. Homegrown.
Wow.
Since Manny Ramirez. And in a way...
Grady Sizemore never made it?
They traded for Grady Sizemore.
Oh, you're right. He came from the Expos.
Yeah.
That's right.
And which is remarkable. And I'll tell you another thing, Jay. Before the season, which we didn't have high expectations for the Guardians, we thought they'd be like an okay team.
Little above 500.
If I would have said to you before the season, Guardians are going to have 5 All-Stars, you would have probably thought at least 3 pitchers, maybe 4 pitchers.
I would have definitely thought Bieber was healthy.
You thought Bieber, maybe McKenzie, maybe Bybee, who knows?
And Clase.
You wouldn't have guessed 4 hitters.
No, never.
Because 3 of those 4 hitters had never been All-Stars before. Naylor came close last year. Remember, Kwan didn't even hit 300 last year.
No, he didn't hit 300. We said he fell off a little bit from his first year.
Right.
We said he didn't have the same year. We were like, okay.
Well, he did fall off a little bit. I thought he did. I thought he
absolutely.
took a step back. But,
he's taking 5 steps forward this year.
He is. The 9 home runs thing is wild to me.
And 4 of their top 5 hitters in the lineup or in the All-Star game.
You've always heard that home runs happen. You run into home runs. You don't go up to the plate looking for home runs. What's so fascinating to me is the Guardians' home run total as a team has skyrocketed. But what did we talk about their pivot offensively was, you know what? Don't worry about making contact. Go for it a little bit. And look what happens.
Yeah.
Their home run total, just with a minor shift in the philosophy, and a guy like Kwan, who almost never swings and misses, has run into 9 home runs.
Yeah.
I think his strikeout totals are similar to what they've always been, too. It's not like he's striking out a lot.
No.
I got his strikeout numbers real quick.
How do they compare from his first couple of years?
His first season, 2022, when he hit 298, In 563 at-bats, he had 60 strikeouts. So 503 times he did not strike out. Yeah, one every
10.
Essentially.
Yeah.
In 2023, he had 638 at-bats and 75 strikeouts.
Okay, so it went up a little bit.
Just tiny.
Yeah, not much.
This year, 253 at-bats and 23 strikeouts.
So it's lower.
It's lower.
How about that?
Or maybe on the same pace.
It's actually not quite 1 in 10 where the others were.
It's just shy of 1 in 10.
Yeah.
It's all in the same general vicinity, but Power way up. He already has a career high 9 homers in less than half the games.
Has he hit more home runs this year than his first 2 years combined?
He has 11 in his first 2 combined, 9 this season.
So by the end of July, he'll have more home runs than he hit in his first 2 seasons put together.
He talked about at the beginning of the season how the Guardians came to him, when they talked about his mechanics and his approach to the plate. He said they asked him to do a lot of things that was very uncomfortable to him, but he's glad that they asked him to do so because he's seeing the results. And when you are an excellent contact hitter like that, and then you have the coaching that can help you with your mechanics, I think it becomes easier for a guy who's already a great hitter to identify those pitches that are so low-key like, okay, this is my pitch I can drive. Like in the last couple games, I've been seeing him hit these home runs off these fastballs, but some of them have been coming off left-handed pitching. And it's just like the way he's seeing the ball right now and his timing and just the patience at the plate is crazy. Like when they show the slow-mo replays of his home runs, it's like a perfect swing time every single time.
He does have a great swing.
And it's damn near impossible to be that patient when you're at the plate like that.
Great plate discipline. And it is difficult when guys are asked, especially after they've had some success. He wasn't an all-star, but he had success. And now, all of a sudden, management comes to you and says, hey, listen, we want you to tweak some things.
Right.
It's easy to look at that and say, don't mess with success.
Yeah.
But they saw in him the ability to take it to the next level. And you got to give hats off to the Guardians for, approaching him on those things.
Yeah.
Because a lot of players, particularly when you don't have the big contract yet, they don't want to screw with anything. They want to play it safe, get their big deal, and then maybe you can tinker around with some stuff. Right. Oh, did you think Francisco Lindor was a snub?
I did. He's had a great last month.
He's really gotten
He might get in if there's some guys that drop out.
I hope he does, because to me, he's an all-star personality.
Absolutely.
And that has to wait for something.
And the Mets are playing as well as anybody right now. They've been hot for the last month, and he's been one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah.
He turned it around. They turned it around.
Yes.
So kudos
I didn't realize
to him.
his numbers. Since they played here in Cleveland, the Mets, and we laughed at the fact that he was off to a horrific start.
He's turned it around.
He's hitting 250 with 15 homers, 45 RBIs, and an OPS in the top 60 in Major League Baseball right now.
And he's got a lot of
over
doubles.
the last month, his numbers in the month of June were incredible. I mean, the last 30 days, he's hitting 285 with 6 homers, 15 RBIs.
Those are
9
Frankie
walks.
numbers. Yeah.
I mean,
you can almost, and you mentioned this, but you can almost date it back to his time in Cleveland. And I wonder if his return to Cleveland didn't remind him of some things, of how much he loves the game.
Oh, yeah.
And how to play loose and free like he did here.
I'm sure he'd love to come back and play here again.
I'm sure we'd love to have him come back and play here
Sometimes you
again.
got to have a familiar environment to kind of remind you who you are.
I agree with that.
And I think that's that. But, we talked about Fry, we talked about Kwan, and you all know way more about baseball than me and G do when it comes to the, talent side of things. But when I look at the personalities of some of these guys, I believe one of the biggest cheat codes in life is being able to be teachable. And when you see the type of season that David Fry is having so far, when you see Stephen Kwan having the season that he's having so far, but the Guardians got 3 first-time All-Stars, like that's a product of who you are as a person. Because you get a rookie manager in here with some brand new ideas, and the fact that you're able to be teachable, it seems like you're unlocking a new ceiling for your playing style or for how good you really are.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Well, that brings us to Josh Naylor, who was close last year, Bull, as you mentioned earlier, a first-time and well-deserving All-Star. Are you guys surprised at the level Josh has elevated his game to under the tutelage of Stephen Vogt? Or did you always envision this being around the ceiling for one Josh Naylor?
Well, I thought he did it last year. He just got hurt last year. I mean, he is elevated. I'll fully admit, I always thought Josh Naylor was a nice player, good player, but he's a better player than I ever thought he'd be. I mean, he probably should have been an all-star last year. He got snubbed. He was borderline. He clearly deserved to be an all-star, even when he was slumping there from what was it, late May to middle of June, late June.
Yeah,
he
had
was
about
still
a
knocking
month.
in runs, though.
Yeah, he did, but
even
his
in that
average
stretch
was way down.
Yeah, but
his power was down.
It was, but he was still clutch. He still had a lot of clutch at bats during that time. And he's turned himself into a serviceable fielder. He's never going to be a great fielder. He's a serviceable fielder. For a guy as big as he is, I think he runs the bases very well. He's extremely aggressive on the bases. It's hard not to like Josh Naylor. I'm glad that I underestimated how good he was going to be and not overestimated, because he is a phenomenal ball player and as good as any first baseman offensively in the game right now, especially in the American League.
They got a lot of late bloomers. Like I don't know if that's just the way they identify their talent, but they got a lot of guys that seem to hit their stride 26, 27, 28. And you got to do that a little bit. You're not going to have, a bunch of younger guys that may come up and pop all of a sudden at once. You look at some of the older guys like Naylor. Fry is older. Heck, Schneemann is old. Like, even the guys they're bringing up now are a little bit older. So it may take a little bit of time for them to hit their stride, but the approach of the plate is different. We're going to pivot to, talk about Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor wouldn't have hit no 2-run home run if he didn't have a different approach. Like two strikes, two strikes, you got 2 outs. Usually guys are just trying to put the ball in play.
He got all of that.
He's like, no, I'm still swinging for the fences here.
Yeah, and by the way, we talked about the trade earlier where the Guardians ripped off the Brewers for David Fry. Think about the trade that got Josh Naylor. In that trade, you got Naylor, you got Arias, so I don't have much hope for at this point, but whatever. They also got Joey Cantillo, who may help them in the future. But the key guy the Guardians gave up in that trade was Mike Clevenger, who's been a nothing really since they traded him.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah,
I think they had kind of recognized him as a bit of. I don't want to use these words if it's not their words.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say head case, but I think that they felt he fell in with Bauer.
They didn't trust him,
and he didn't have their trust.
Yeah,
and certainly if you look at his career arc since he's left here, it's gone nothing but down.
No.
I was always worried about Clevenger from the very first time I saw him pitch in a spring training game. I said, I love his stuff. I hate his mechanics.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was a violent delivery, and you just knew that can't last.
Yeah, he's never been able to stay healthy.
No, he has put on some weight. His frame is different now than it was, but when he came up, he was not as skinny as McKenzie, but it was pretty damn skinny.
Yeah.
And I just worried about his mechanics. So they've made some trades, Bull, and let's hope that they're getting ready to make some in the next 2 weeks.
Better be.
Because I had a text exchange yesterday with a friend of mine who's a fan, and we're kind of theorizing what's going to happen. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in the days to come, but quickly, my theory on the whole trade deadline thing is this. There are opportunities in life that present themselves. And sometimes you have to gauge those opportunities. Do I want to leave this job for that job? It's the devil I know versus the devil I don't. Then a job presents itself, and it's just so good, you're like, this is worth the risk. Well, last year we talked about, are they going to be sellers? Are they going to be buyers? They ended up being sellers. I didn't love that because I thought they had an opportunity. When they sold Savali, who has proven to be not worthy of this roster, but when they traded him, I thought, oh, that's a hands-in-the-air white flag move, and I hate that. This year, we are absolutely, undeniably buyers. And so I would even go so far as to say, not only, you got to decide in poker how many chips you push into the middle of the table. And last year, if they were going to be buyers, they might have put in a few. This year, you almost have to go all in.
Yeah.
Because of where they are and how much this team has overachieved. They've got a chance to win the World Series.
I'll steal this from G. Bush. It's got to be Operation Stockpile.
Yes, I like it.
I don't want one pitcher. I want 2.
I do too.
I want another bat, and I want 2 starting pitchers. Let's not mess around.
I know.
This team can win the World Series with some upgrades at the starting rotation.
Yes. You weren't here when we talked about Fetty as a trade target. Was he here? He wasn't here that day.
That was a Friday. Bull wasn't here that day.
I love the idea. I love him. I mean, I think he's 2-0 against, or I don't know if he got the win in the first game, but
he's pitched well.
He's gone, I think, 12 innings against the Guardians. We haven't scored on this guy.
The last time we just played them last week, and I remember watching that game, and I said to myself, do I want to see the Guardians really light his ass up, or do I really want to see him pitch
They
well?
can't hit him.
Because, like, to me,
he's gone 6 scoreless and 6 scoreless. in his
it
2
was given.
appearances
I
against
just
them.
needed to gauge, okay, how much do I want the Guardians to go after this guy?
I want this guy.
But like you both have said, listen, man, to do something that you've never done or to get somewhere you've never been,
You gotta
you're
take
gonna
risks.
have you're gonna
That's
have to
right.
do some
They
things
gotta
that you've
be all
never
in.
done.
Yes.
And you trust them when they make trades because they usually make good
Right,
trades.
and so when I look at the Dolans, and not to cut you off, but when
No.
I look at the Dolans, when I look at everybody that's involved with the Guardians, they have to look at this situation and say, okay, this team legit can win the World Series.
Yes.
And I know it's against our nature to spend this type of money, and we might have to pay for it on the back end. But damn it, if we go get this World Series, the payoff on that is greater than any price that we're going to have to pay 2 or 3
I
years
agree.
from now.
Look at the
And
attendance right
You've
now.
got the number 1 overall pick
Right.
in the upcoming draft.
Yeah.
They've never had that before,
Yeah.
which
No.
boggles my mind.
It's crazy with all
as
the
bad as
losing
this
they did.
organization
Yeah.
has been, they have never had
Yeah.
the luxury of selecting the number 1 player in the
Yeah.
draft. So I'm not going to say that they'll, strike pay dirt like the Pirates did.
Yeah.
He was a generational pitcher. He's doing generational things now, and that's fine. But that's the kind of player you can get in the draft. And
Yeah.
there are some stellar players out there. It's not like there's a slam dunk easy
No.
pick.
No.
But knowing that you have that bull, I'm more likely to push some of my current
They
chips
have
in.
to. They have to, especially because they haven't in a number of years here. They didn't. Obviously, last year they didn't. The year before, when they made the playoffs, they didn't go in all
No.
in with big chips. Here's the deal. There are a lot of interesting pitchers out there. I like Eric Fetty from the White Sox. I like Jamison Tyone from the Cubs.
I do too.
think he's
I
been
do
great
too.
this
Are they
year.
going to? Are they going to?
They have to be done. They should be. They should trade him. Now he's got 2 years left and a decent amount of money, but you work it out. The Cubs pay
Yeah.
some of the money to figure it out. I think the Cubs are a great trade partner for the Guardians. I like them getting Nico Horner potentially. I like them getting Cody Bellinger potentially.
Are the Cubs completely?
They should be. I don't know that they're officially doing it, but they're in last place.
Yeah, but they're not. How many out are there?
Yeah,
Out
but
from
they've
the
been
wild
playing.
card?
They've been playing. I don't know exactly how many out they are because they've been playing so terribly. I'm just not even paying attention.
You know what's
that much.
weird, Bull, is
Yeah.
there are a lot of teams that are in that purgatory zone.
Yeah, right.
Like, are we buyers? Are we sellers? And here's something interesting, and I'd like to do this research later today.
Yeah.
If you look at the last couple of World Series champions, well, let's use the Braves and the Rangers. Nobody said they were going to win the World Series on August 1st.
Nope.
Nobody.
Add in the Nationals.
Throw the Nationals in there. So, in fact, if you look at the last 10 World Series winners,
Yeah.
I bet only once or twice has the team that eventually won the World Series that year had as many wins at the All-Star break as the Guardians are going to have.
Right. The Cubs did, I think, in 2016. They had a lot of wins.
Yes, they were
But
one of the
not
better
many.
teams all year.
But not many.
You're going back 8 years
Yeah,
for
it's
that.
8 years already.
And so we're here.
The
and
Guardians
the opportunity
can
is
play-
in front of them, and they've got to meet it.
The Guardians have a massive edge in the bullpen.
Huge.
Massive. Their bullpen's been lights out.
Are you worried about
I am
them running
worried.
out of gas?
I am worried. They got a little rest over the last week because there were some one-sided games, both wins and losses. But I'm
Right.
worried because
too.
you're throwing these guys. But you look at like Gaddis and Clase have thrown about 80 innings between them. They've given up 2 home runs and I think walked 8, 9. I mean, it's like ridiculous. Gaddis had that one bad weekend. Remember against Atlanta like 6 weeks ago, whatever.
Two
it was?
games in a row. One
Got
of them
smoked.
they ended up winning in extra
Yeah.
innings, but the very next night he blew the lead.
I think he's
and
given
they
up like
lost.
1 run since then. Clase gave up a run yesterday. Like, oh my God, he gave up a run.
Rare, right?
I mean, that's such an advantage. The lineup is good enough. I want one more hitter, one more proven hitter, but I could live with it as is because the front of the lineup is great. You got to get more starting pitching. Right now,
I agree.
I can't trust anybody besides Bybee, and he didn't pitch great in his last start, but I trust him. Obviously, Lively's been very good, but I'm always nervous about him.
Well, we're holding our breath with him.
I'm fine with him as their 4th starter in the playoffs.
Right.
But I got to have 2 more because I don't know what Gavin Williams is
What
going
do
to
you
be.
make of
We'll see.
Logan Allen?
I don't trust him at all. I didn't trust him last year. They sent him down now.
I know. To me, he's been a big disappointment.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Because I looked at. I clearly thought Bybee was better.
Yeah.
But I thought Logan Allen was just behind him and had room to catch him.
Yeah.
Now he's in the minor leagues.
We're going to talk about last night's game in 1 sec, but Earl, we mentioned Clase. We mentioned Kwan, we mentioned Naylor, and we mentioned Fry. Jose and Clase, the other 2 all-star representatives for the Guardians. You get the last word before we move on, but thoughts on Jose and Clase? 2 pretty obvious picks getting selected to the all-star.
Clase, like, hands down, best closer in baseball. Without a doubt, he deserves to be there. I asked this question on my X account yesterday. I said, I think this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Was Jose Ramirez already on the Mount Rushmore for the Cleveland Guardians? it seems like every time I'm on social media after a game that he's played in, he's either passing Earl Averill, Jim Thome, or Manny Ramirez in some crazy
He will end up on. I don't know that he currently is.
Yeah.
He will absolutely end up
you
on.
know, just to see those two get another All-Star nod, to see Jose starting at third base for the first time since 2018, when he's finished in the top 10 in the MVP race over the last several years. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the city. I'm happy for the team. We got 5 All-Stars. Let's go get it done.
And by the way, last quick note, I mentioned the 2 trades that they got 2 of those guys. Emmanuel Clase, remember who they traded for him?
Yeah, it was Kluber.
And everybody was up in arms.
I know.
And Kluber was finished.
And you know what? When Clase, his first year with us, I said, this guy's got a fastball, but it doesn't move.
No.
He's got to add a secondary pitch because guys will run into 100 miles an hour
and
after
now
a while.
He's just nasty.
His cutter, he gets in on right-handed hitters with that pitch, and he's breaking bats, and he can't do anything with it.
You know who he reminds me a lot of? One of my favorite players when I was a kid. The Cubs had a closer named Lee Smith. Do you remember him?
Oh, I do remember.
Huge, hulking guy.
Big Lee Smith.
And he's a Hall of Famer.
Sure.
And that's what Clase reminds me. He's intimidating. When you see him come to the mound with the hair all over the place, he's big. He's throwing and he's throwing harder than ever. He's throwing 101, 102.
I've seen him hit 103 this year.
He is nasty.
Just realizing if you go with purple tips,
yeah, I knew he was.
If you go with purple tips, bro, we could have an Austin Hedges, Emmanuel Clase battery. You guys put the jerseys on?
He got the purple. I think he got the green on the other side.
He does.
He mixes them up. He
does.
Under no circumstance can you have golden and purple hair. That is not the streets is not co-signing that move.
Jay, who are you
it works for Emmanuel Clase.
Who's Jay going to be? Who's G going to be? I think I could be Alejandro Kirk from the Blue Jays. That's me.
I'm Byron Leftwich.
Of the Mets for you,
That's true. Yeah.
I was thinking
Tugboat.
Tugboat would be great for Bull.
If we go in,
no, he's way taller than me.
Well, I don't think Tugboat's
Clase's taller than Earl too, but you can't tell on TV.
That's true. That's
true.
You just can't tell.
You also can't tell G. Bush is 6'11" on TV.
People always say when he's out in public, man, you're a lot taller than I thought.
It freaks people out. They be looking like, and they be like, man, I knew it was you because you said something, but dog, I didn't know you was that big, man. I'm like, yeah.
That's right.
All right, we're gonna talk about another big time contributor on the Guardians.